Welcome to the Blue Zone. This is a New York Football Giants fan podcast. I'm your host, Atticus Davis. My co-host, Mumar, is away tonight, but he'll be back next week where we'll be recapping the Seahawks-Giants game. Tonight, I'm going to do a quick review of the game the Giants had last week against the Dallas Cowboys at MetLife Stadium. And then we're going to go right into a preview of the game this Sunday at 4:15 between the Seattle Seahawks, the high-flying Geno Smith, number one passing offense in the league, Seattle Seahawks, hosting our beloved New York Football Giants. So the Giants had a game last week, and they were playing the Dallas Cowboys at Giant Stadium. And I need to say that there's a couple of things I want to talk about that game. First of all, it's a game that the Giants should have won, right? It's just like they should have beat the Washington Commanders. They beat the Cleveland Browns, but they should have beat the Dallas Cowboys also. The reason they lost against Washington, they were very efficient. The Giants moved the ball down the field. They scored 3 touchdowns. In fact, I felt confident that the Giants were going to win that game probably through the third quarter. But once I noticed that the Giants just could not stop the Commanders from driving down the field, I was like, yeah, they probably ain't going to win this game because they couldn't get the punter on the field. Even when they were successful at stopping them, a penalty allowed the drive to continue. And that's when I knew they were going to lose a very winnable game. Very disappointing. Then following week, obviously they played much better. In fact, I was very pleased with the performance they put on the field. The offensive line was starting to click. The running game was playing well. The offensive line held up, giving DJ enough time to scan the field, throw the ball. We continued to see Malik Neighbors turn into this like phenom of a receiver. And the defense got after Deshaun Watson. It was a good thing to see. And you felt like, okay, all right, we're starting to do something. Maybe we got some momentum going. Then they host the Dallas Cowboys. And Dallas fans travel well. They show up at the game. I wasn't there. I sold those tickets a while ago. But they show up at the game and they treat Giant Stadium like it's a fucking Airbnb. It's just how they do. And it's so frustrating. So I was happy I wasn't there to see, especially to see us lose a game that by all accounts, the Giants should have won. They controlled the time of possession. Even though they did not run the ball well, it was amazing to me. They did not run the ball well. Dallas came into this game giving up the most rushing yards by far of any other team in the league. And they turned into a stiff board. Their defense was tighter than a fucking fish's ass, not letting nothing in. 1.1 yards per carry is what they surrendered to the New York Giants. In fact, it was impressive. It was impressive how they were able to shut down the run game after giving everybody a chance to run wherever the hell they want, however long they wanted to against their defense. They shut it down. Even though they did, the Giants still were able to put together 5 scoring drives. 5 of them. Okay? 1 in the first quarter, 2 in the second quarter, 1 in the third quarter, 1 in the fourth quarter. And on 5 scoring drives, in fact, I think the Giants only punted the ball 1 time. And on the last attempt to try to do something, there was a pick by DJ on a long, deep shot downfield, which didn't really mean shit. The game was over at that point. However, how do you have 5 scoring drives and you only get 5 field goals? Thank God we got the field goals, though, right? Thank God Greg Joseph can kick a ball through the goalpost and turn it into 3 points at a time. But you ain't going to win games if all you're doing is kicking field goals. Well, unless you're the Washington Commanders, right? Conversely, The Giants had big Kentucky Fried Chicken looking like he don't miss the biscuits and gravy ever, running looking like a halfway decent running back. Ezekiel Elliott ain't shit. He used to be halfway decent. He ain't shit anymore, but he looked like a sufficient answer to whatever the Giants try to do to stop their running game. And not for nothing, the Giants didn't do a terrible job against the run, but they gave up the run at the worst times during that game. CeeDee Lamb did CeeDee Lamb shit. He just did what he does. And I'm sorry. I said this before, but Deonte Banks is not a CB1. I was watching my boy TP Way's podcast from yesterday. I think he posted it yesterday. And he shares similar concerns as me. Deonte Banks, and I like him. Don't let this sound like I am indicting him. I am not. I like him. I think he has an opportunity to be a decent CB in this league. Maybe not a CB2, but he's certainly not a CB1 right now, even though he's featured as one. He's not playing very well. If you want a first down, just throw it in his directions, and he's probably playing so far off of the receiver that you can just do an inside slant and get it. He has not been very good in the trail technique. If you throw it over him, he can't catch up and deflect the pass, defend the pass without the receiver catching it. And then sometimes he's so close to a player on press coverage that he has an inability to bump him at the line to throw him off of their route pattern or their anticipated route pattern, and they get by him, and then he's toast. He has not been having a good year. I hope that improves for him because right now with Dory Jackson, who they brought in after they saw the deficiencies at the CB2 position, right? He's injured with a calf injury, and these things linger. And then we have Drew Phillips, who honestly I'm really excited about him and his progression. I think the more he plays, the better he's going to get, and I'm thinking that he already looks like he'll be a solid CB2. I don't know. Maybe he'll be good enough if he has enough opportunities to play to be a CB1, but he's out with a calf injury as well. And like I said, these types of injuries tend to linger, and you don't have a sufficient timetable that you can rely on when you're going to see him back on the field. So in the meantime, what you need is for these guys to hold up, right? You need them to hold up. And how do you get that to happen? You get that to happen by having an adequate, sufficient, or probably dominant pass rush, which the Giants going into this season is something that I felt like they had, that was going to be their strength. I wasn't sure if it was going to be stronger than what we saw from the passing game during training camp, but I thought that the defense was certainly going to be formidable. And for me, it hasn't been. I don't know what you guys think. I want to see what you have to say about that in the chat. But I haven't felt like, I'm hoping that they will. But I still don't have reason to believe that outside of Dexter Lawrence, that this defensive front is going to be formidable. Have I seen flashes? Obviously, I have. But that was against Cleveland, who is probably one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. I need to see a dominant pass rush where we're getting after the quarterback, where we're putting pressure on them, forcing them into making interceptions and bad throws, forcing them into three and outs and incompletions. And I haven't seen that on a consistent enough basis for me to buy into this defense, at least the defensive scheme. I think that sometimes the scheme that we're using, it doesn't have players in a position that's going to allow them to excel and play at their peak performance. When you're trying to have players do things that's just outside of their skill set, you're not going to see the very best that they can give you. And sometimes I think that's what's happening. We saw what happened against Cleveland when we had a much higher blitz rate, and the players seemed to perform well. When you put that much pressure on a quarterback, your cornerbacks don't have to do as much. And if your quarterback has time to scan and he's on his third and fourth read, and you got a player like Deonte Banks out there, and on the other side you got Cordell Flott out there, how long do you think these guys who are really just adequate going to be able to cover these premier receivers in the league? Particularly when you're talking about going into Seattle and playing the likes of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Smith and Jigba. I mean, what are you going to do when you're not getting a rush on a quarterback and you got those three premier receivers running around just creating spaces in a zone defense where they can catch the ball and maybe run the ball 75 yards downfield. I don't know what you're going to do. The Dallas game that the New York Giants just played last Thursday was very winnable. It was Malik Neighbors doing his thing. Wan'Dale Robinson doing his thing. Darius Slayton is very consistent. They haven't used him that much because they haven't needed to. But then you also have Jalen Hyatt, who I'm really not sure what's happening there, but he has not been getting a lot of play time. You know, he hasn't been doing a lot of practice with the ones, and then when they've used him, it's been in such a limited role that I don't know that he's developed the chemistry that he needs to come in absent a Malik Neighbors and give the Giants some type of consistent play and timing that is needed on those deep shots down the field that's going to help him to have a successful game. I don't know. I'm not saying that he can't do that because obviously training camp he showed that he's very capable of doing it. Let me not just say training camp. He showed us that during regular season games last year. So I think he can be a threat to an opposing defense. And I know I'm going back and forth between games, but listen, this Seattle Seahawks defense just gave up a perfect passer rating to Jared Goff. And Jared Goff's a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but a perfect passer rating, 18 passes, not one single dropped pass. And I think that there was one drop pass or pass defended, but there was a pass interference on that one. So while he might have had an incompletion, a penalty negated that one, which maintained his perfect passer rating, 100% efficiency, which is pretty good. So, and then let's talk about the running game. Kenneth Walker. This guy ran 6.7 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. I mean, as a team, these guys are averaging 7 yards a run. 7 yards a run. And so I'm thinking, put it like this. The Detroit Lions has a decent defense. It kind of didn't look that decent on Monday night, but I'm just going to chalk that up to having a bad game, a bad outing. But you got to think about some of the receiving threats that's on the other side. So Geno Smith was pretty efficient too. Maybe not as efficient as Jared Goff, but he had 38 completions for almost 400 passing yards. You have that many passing yards, and he had 10 different targets. He passed the ball to 10 different receivers, and they did not look bad. They put up 29 points in a loss on the road. That team can score, and they can score in bunches when they need to. They have threats all over the field offensively. Kenneth Walker, 12 rushes, 80 yards. Zach Charbonnet, 2 rushes for 15 yards. Geno Smith can get out of the pocket and run the ball down the field when he needs to. 5 rushes for 38 yards. DK Metcalf, 7 receptions. Tyler Lockett, 5 receptions. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 8 receptions. Charbonnet, 5. Kenneth Walker, 4. Jake Bobo, 3 receptions. Listen, they even had Laviska Shenault Jr. getting a reception for 18 yards. Farrell Brown got 1 for 3. These guys are putting the ball where they need to in the moments that they need to put it somewhere. And defensively, these guys had 3 sacks. I don't know that I'm so much worried about defensive pressure on DJ because, like I said, Illuminor has really held up the right side of the line. Some of the Giants' additions on the offensive line have played very well. John Runyon Jr. has played well. Van Groten has played well. And not for nothing, John Michael Schmitz, who was probably the weakest performance and execution player, smart guy. He knows all the calls, but he was getting beat a lot. But he's played well too. And then AT, what are you going to say about him? He's done his job on the left side of the line also. So I'm not really worried so much about the pass rush. And the fact that Jones, if it does come to a pass rush, with the players that are available from a wide receiver perspective, they can go to the quick game if they need to. What I would like to see, if Neighbors is unavailable, and right now it's looking like he may not be, but if Neighbors is unavailable, I want to see a heavy dose of the quick game. Wan'Dale Robinson is a contributor. He's a baller. Okay, not for nothing. These receivers, or the New York Giants receiving core, I think as a room has turned into some dogs, right? That's what we wanted. Malik Neighbor is a dog, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, I think he has always had that. And the Giants was running around preaching this culture. We want good culture, guys. Fuck that. We want players that's going to catch the ball, run it down the field, and punch the other guy in the mouth. That's what we want. When you get guys who go out there like dogs, like I'm taking this shit, like these are my yards, I want them. When they want to eat, when they want to get theirs, that's the players you want. You want them to be able to control that aggression, though, and not turn it into stupid penalties. But do you want that aggression to be translated into some yards? You want that energy to be translated to proper execution. You want that energy to be translated to, I'm not going to let you get this first down. And when you got guys who are collectively playing as a unit, like the Borg, and they shutting shit down, and the offense is moving the ball effectively, executing well, and scoring touchdowns and not field goals, you can win some games, right? Seattle is going to be a formidable opponent. They are not a team that gives up 42 points in the game. That is un-Seattle Seahawks-ish. It happened. We watched it happen, but that is not their identity. It was this week. They were 3-0 going into this game. And I could have honestly seen this game being 42 Seahawks, 29 Detroit. But this was just Detroit's night. It was in Detroit, in their home. They played well. It was a very good outing for them. The Giants are going to have their hands full. Do I think they're going to win this game? I don't think they're going to win this game. I mean, I am I'm in an abusive relationship with the New York Giants. Can they win? Yeah, they could win, but it's going to take a whole lot of fucking praying to Jesus, Joseph, Mary, Allah, Buddha, and any other deity you can think of. They can win. I don't think they will. I think that the Seahawks are a very good team. The Giants are flying to the other side of the country. I don't think the time difference is going to mean that much because it's going to feel like a 1 o'clock game here, which is fine. But we're going in there and we don't have a good secondary right now. We just don't. I think that Tay Banks is a liability. I think that Cordell Flott is in year 4 of, we know he is not going to be a future CB on his team, but he's what we have right now. And I think that having the security blanket of Adoree Jackson, who's out with a calf injury, Drew Phillips, who's a rookie but also has a calf injury, Tyler Nubin, who I do think is going to play well, but he got torched along with Tay Banks on that CeeDee Lamb pass from Dak Prescott last week. I think he is going to be something, but he's been thrust into the fire too early in his career. Dane Belton, I really like him. I just don't think our secondary is ready. I just don't think they are. So when you talk about DK Metcalf, when you talk about Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith and Jigba, I don't think we have enough pieces to be able to be effective against their passing game. Not unless there's a collapse on the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. Not unless the Giants defensive line, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, Elijah Chapman, they all find some type of freaking high octane air and get after Geno Smith in a way that forces him into making bad decisions. I just don't see it. Although I want it to be true. Offensively, I'm not as concerned. I think the Giants can put up points. The Giants has shown me, the Giants have shown all of us outside of week 1, they know how to move the ball down the field. They know how to move that ball down the field. They know how to be effective even when their run game isn't working for them. They know how to score points. They know how to get in scoring range. What they need to do is learn how to convert these 3-point opportunities into touchdowns. And I also want to see, and I was watching a press conference that DJ had earlier today, and he was talking about the fact that He knows his deep ball accuracy. Started off throwing too short, then started off overthrowing, then he started throwing a little too short, and he said that he's figured that out. So I really believe that if the Giants can fix that deep ball accuracy issue, and when you have a Jalen Hyatt on your team and Darius Slayton on your team, these are two guys who can stretch the field. You should be able to get one or two deep shots in a game. And DJ's intermediate and short passing game has been pretty good. He's been pretty efficient. He hasn't been perfect, but he's been pretty good and efficient. I want to see some stretch plays. I want to see the play action setting up the play. And that brings me to Devin Singletary, who's dealing with a groin injury, who said today that today's the first day he's actually felt better since last Thursday when he got a groin injury. I do need to say that with Tyrone Tracy Jr., and I talk about this kid a lot because I just think he is going to be an incredible player. Given some time, experience, and some familiarity with the offense, he's going to be pretty good. Not only is he a good running back, but he's good catching the ball out of backfield as he's a wide receiver converted to a running back. I want to see how he is in pass pro. If he picks up the blitz the same way that Singletary does, which I think is a strong suit of his. But I think that the running game itself is going to be adequate. I think he will be able to get yards. He knows how to get thin when he needs to and pick up a few yards. So I'm not really worried about that. And because of that, I think that the Giants will still be effective in play action. But I also want to see them get the tight ends more involved. I keep saying this. Daniel Bellinger is who should be in the game. Because when you throw the ball his way, he tends to catch the ball. I'm not saying I'm not a fan of Theo Johnson, because I am. I think Theo Johnson is going to be a good tight end in this league. But I think that you should slow walk him into his role. You should let him learn behind a Daniel Bellinger. Daniel Bellinger is good at run blocking. He's also, he's also great at catching the ball out of backfield. And I'm extremely excited about the fact that, and I don't say this enough, and I probably should, the Giants have developed a screen game. Oh my God. The New York Giants have thrown probably 4 or 5 successful screen passes this year alone. And we're only in week 4, going into week 5, when last year they probably had 4 or 5 successful screen passes all year. They just have not been able to do that. So it's really exciting to see that. What do I think is going to happen? I don't know. Geno Smith is looking pretty good. The guy's throwing the ball all over the place. I mean, granted, it was in a catch-up position posture from last week. He's behind. He's throwing the ball almost 400 yards to try to make something happen. But don't lose sight of the fact that he threw the ball almost 400 yards in a game. It's pretty damn good. Kenneth Walker is a very capable running back. I think Dexter Lawrence, Elijah Chapman, Nunez Roches are going to have their hands full trying to stop him. And he's a big back. You know, he knows how to get I like to use that term, get skinny when he needs to and pick up yards. And he protects the ball pretty well. And not for nothing, he's effective catching the ball out of the backfield. So you got to watch the edge. And Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau, they have to pay attention to these running backs sneaking out of the backfield and picking up 6-7 yards on dump plays. And what can you say about the receiving core? Like I said, for the Seahawks, they've got a 3-headed monster in receivers. They'll slice and they'll kill you with 1,000 cuts, these guys. And defensively, I don't know what they gave up a 40-burger last week. That's not the defense that you're typically going to see from the Seattle Seahawks. And you know what's crazy is now that they're playing the New York Giants, they gave up 40 the prior week. They'll probably give up 10 this week and look like the fucking juggernauts of the NFL. I'm hoping that is not the case, but hey, we've seen it happen. I've said it before. Being a Giants fan is like being in an abusive relationship lately. It is painful, but diehard, loyal Giants fans like me I'm going to always be there for my boys. You know, I'm going to always root for Daniel Jones, even though at this point I believe that the Giants need to look in a different direction. Not because I don't like Daniel Jones, because I do. I just don't think that he is going to be in their future plans, and I'm prepared to accept that and move on to whatever's next. And whoever's at the quarterback position for the Giants, I'm rooting for him, right? Whether it's Danny DeVito doing his little thing, even when Geno Smith was on the Giants and he went into the game for Eli Manning, even though I strongly disagreed with the decision to sit Eli, and that Geno gave us the best chance of winning that particular game that we lost anyway. I supported Geno Smith. It wasn't his fault. Shit, I want to go in and win too. And look what happened with him. Look what happened with Geno Smith. I think a lot of Giants fans would be happy to have him on our roster today. So, final score for this Sunday's game. I think the Giants are going to keep it interesting because for whatever reason, they seem to do that. The only game they didn't was with the Vikings, but the Giants tend to play based on their competition. If they're playing a shit team, they get blown out. If they're playing a good team, they play well. So what do I say this game is going to be? The final score? I don't know, but I think the Giants lose another heartbreaker. I want them to win, obviously, but I just think that they're going to make things tougher on themselves than they need to. I don't have enough faith in our defense. I feel better about our offense than I do our defense. Who would have thought that a Giants fan would be saying that? But I'm saying it. Anyway, if you like what you heard today, you like the content that we're putting up on this channel, I encourage you to hit the like and subscribe button. Tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Share the channel. Click that notification bell so whenever we drop some new content, a new video, you are the first one who's notified. We will see you guys next week. Go Big Blue. Let's beat the Seahawks. Peace.